Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Hi, everybody. So we're talking about whether President Joe Biden is to blame for the Ukraine invasion, why Senator Ted Cruz is calling out racial discrimination against Democrats, Colin Kaepernick's new initiative to address police-related deaths, and which First Lady Viola Davis is playing in a new Showtime series. There can only be one. The Business of Being Black today is another round of the political and trending highlights of the week with my weekly guests. Please welcome my Friday co-host, the co-founder of the Anti-Racism Kentucky Coalition, Dr. O.J. Oleka is here. Hi, Dr. O.J.
Good to see you.
Activist and radio personality, Dominique DePrima. Hi, Dominique.
What's up, Tammy?
Ed Sanders will probably join us next week, but that's okay. We've still got comedian and filmmaker Alicia Cooper in the house. Hey, Lily.
Hey, Tammy. Love the green.
Thank you so much. Green is for the money. Gold is for the honeys. Hey. So let's get started right away with President Joe Biden. He's facing criticism from Republicans about how he is handling the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Some are saying that Biden's former policies have emboldened Putin's actions and that Biden's weakness led Russia to attack. Take a look at this. Or not.
Doesn't respect statements. He only respects strength. And he views President Biden as weak and ineffective and indecisive, especially after Afghanistan.
I would go back again to this executive order that Putin signed is really a declaration of war. And I think the United States and our NATO allies need to see it that way and do everything we can to stop him. But, I'm afraid the damage is done because this president's been so weak.
Americans shouldn't have to sacrifice and suffer for President Biden's foolish decisions.
I miss Donald Trump. If Donald Trump were president, none of this crap would be going on because you got to be strong. When you're weak is when everything falls apart. And Biden is weak and Trump was strong. I hope we have another election soon.
Exactly when the election will happen. So that was odd. I hope we have another election soon. It's going to be when it's going to be, Lindsey Graham. Is this criticism accurate, Dominique?
Well, it's predictable. I mean, it's so clear that they have a talking point because they're all almost saying the exact same words, which is interesting because Republicans are all over the map on Ukraine. You've got Donald Trump, who's praising Putin, his strongman BFF. You've got Tucker Carlson praising Putin and favorably comparing him to so-called woke liberals. And, let's just close our eyes and imagine what would happen if Russia decided to invade Ukraine and the 45th president was still in office palling around with Putin. Would he be stronger on this issue? Strongly backing Putin, I'd say. I think it's a weak talking point, trying to project weakness onto the president in a complex situation that really we need to be acting mature and diplomatic about in whatever ways we can to ramp this down without setting off a major European war.
Yeah, it's not looking too good, but they are standing by that word weak. So that's interesting. Dr. Oleka?
Well, weak is the accurate description, not only for Joe Biden, but quite frankly, for the entire Western community. I mean, Dominique said, let's imagine if this would have happened if Trump was in office. Trump was in office and it didn't happen. But we've got to understand Putin in the context that we're talking about here. Vladimir Putin has wanted the Ukraine. He's wanted to recreate the old Soviet Union since he's come into power. We saw this in 2008 when he invaded Georgia during the final year of the Bush White House. We saw this in 2014 when he invaded Crimea during the Obama administration. And now we're seeing it when he's trying to take the rest of Ukraine. Vladimir Putin wants power. It's not uncertain what he wants. He's pretty much been telling us for the past 15 years. So it's not only Joe Biden, but the entire Western community, all of NATO, who should have been more prepared, who should have seen this coming. He's been making these signals for about 15 years at this point.
Alicia?
Well, yeah, of course he wants power. He's 5'5" with a Napoleon complex. But it's funny to me how Joe Biden has been in office a year and everything is his fault. He's the weak one. Just because he doesn't have all this bluster that Donald Trump had, I don't agree with the fact that they're calling him weak. At the end of the day, if he's always wanted power, then this was inevitable. And it's just going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And it does look like it's going to be a war. And we as an American, we already in debt. So I don't know how we're going to afford another war.
Is this Joe Biden's fault, Dominique?
Is the fact that Russia has a crazy totalitarian dictator for a leader Biden's fault? I'm going to go with no on that. You know, I think it's interesting that going back to 1991, when the Soviet Union actually, you know, broke apart, if that's really one place you could start, but people want to start like 3 days ago. The problem is that, you know, as Dr. Oleka said, and Alicia said, clearly Putin wants to take back as much of those Soviet territories as he can. And he has legitimate reasons to look for security for his country, but this is beyond that. This is expansionism. And it is tricky. And I think that Dr. Oleka is right in the sense that the Western powers are sort of toothless right now because, you know, they're all condemning this, but they're not going in and backing up the Ukraine with troops, and they can't because it could set off World War III. That's why I think as long as Putin stays out of the NATO countries, we will be able to avert a wider war, I hope, because this, even though these two countries make up something like 3% of the world economy, they are strategically placed, and all of the little dominoes that would be set off by a wider spread war would have a global impact, and it would not be a good thing to layer on top of a pandemic at this moment.
Do you feel the same way, Dr. Oleka?
Well, I think Dominique is right. It would be disastrous for the world. And again, for all of our soulmates who don't love to follow up on the last 30 years of world history, what Vladimir Putin is trying to recreate is basically the Soviet bloc prior to 1997, particularly with countries like the Ukraine, like Georgia. Belarus is even considered in that boat, because what it does is it creates a buffer between the West, or westernized countries, NATO, and Russia. So if Putin can expand and take a country like the Ukraine that's got 40 million people, it has some reasonable assets to it, then all of a sudden he has more influence. When you have more influence, then you can levy more responsibility in terms of the Europeans and where they get their energy. This is why you had Nord Stream 2, that pipeline that had to be sanctioned before. Biden lifted the sanctions, hoping he could work with Putin. But it turns out Putin is insane, and he doesn't want to work with folks. He wants power. The last thing I'll say on this is I'm now concerned about what happens with China and Taiwan. Because if you're looking around the world and you see the West confused, you've got Trump saying what he's saying, McConnell is saying it was a mistake for us to leave Afghanistan the way that we did, and it emboldened Russia. What's China going to do? They've had their eyes on Taiwan for just as long. I'm very concerned about that nation and what happens going forward.
And also, will they end up siding with Putin? I mean, it would be a dangerous play, but that could happen. That would be all bad. I also want to point out the fact that, to your point about the oil or you know, fossil fuels, Dr. Oleka, this is actually an opportunity for big oil companies, big energy companies, to sell to Europe. If Europe is going to start boycotting Russia, then who benefits from that? Big American oil companies that will now be able to sell to Europe, in light of the fact that, as the Washington Post said, Russia is pretty much just a big gas station. I mean, that's basically their only export to the world.
Yeah. So this is, I think, pretty much where the Black community is, but even Americans in general, why should Americans care about this invasion?
Well, that's an excellent question. And quite frankly, that's the challenge that the Biden administration has, is they don't have a good enough answer. But the reality is this: democracy doesn't want norms. We're having this discussion right now in the United States about democracy. Is it under threat? Is it not? There is no question in Russia because they don't have a democratic society. So when you see Putin encroaching west, if he gets what he wants, then again, you could see China do the same thing. You could see other nations deciding that they wanted to invade other countries. If you have this great destabilization, what comes after that is an immigration crisis. People will be trying to move to countries like Europe, like France, like the United States. And so all of a sudden you have an influx of additional people into the United States that many parts of our country would be welcome to take in. But then we have a limited number of resources, and then you have to have those types of difficult challenges for countries, for communities here in the United States to figure out what exactly they do. So it's not a problem necessarily today, but it will definitely be one for communities here in the United States to come.
I'm not sure, Dr. Oleka, if you were talking about when you mentioned the agreement that America had with Ukraine prior to 95, if you were referring to the Budapest Memorandum or not. But it did say that America, along with the UK and the Russian Federation, would protect Ukraine if Ukraine got rid of their nuclear weapons. So are we not obligated to be a part of this, Dominique?
Well, protect can mean a lot of different things. I mean, we're placing sanctions on Russia. That's a form of protection. Everybody's condemning Putin's moves. That's a form of protection. Does it mean boots on the ground? I don't know. I haven't read the fine print. But I think there's a lot of reasons for the world to be concerned. I don't want us to go to war. I want us to urge our lawmakers to use restraint. I think Black America needs to weigh in on this. We need to not let the focus come off of our police reform bill, of providing vaccines to Africa, as the head of the CDC Africa said. We need to make sure this is not a distraction. But at the same time, he's going after a democratically elected country. And so that should be of concern to all democracies. It doesn't mean that we have to go and be the world's police, but it does mean that we should definitely be tracking this, not to mention the impact on the world economy. Ukraine apparently makes a lot of wheat. So, again, more grocery prices going up, gas prices going up. That impacts the price of everything because they use trucks to move everything around. So it's not just Ukraine and Europe that will be affected by this. An ongoing war there will affect prices, will affect democracy, and will affect the global picture for everyone.
Well, America is the most obese country in the world, so I doubt that many of us are eating that wheat. We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the business of being Black with Tammi Mack. Don't go anywhere. We've got lots to cover today on Foxsoul. Be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and my co-hosts are Dr. O.J. Oleka, Alicia Cooper, and Dominique DePrima. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here yet again. So, Texas Senator Ted Cruz said that President Joe Biden's announcement of a Black Supreme Court justice could be illegal and that Democrats believe in racial discrimination when it comes to hiring. So, is President Biden wrong to say that only African-American women need apply for this nomination? This morning, it was announced that Biden is to nominate Ketanji Brown to be the first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. I have to say, when President Trump nominated a Supreme Court justice, it was said that it should be a woman, and it was a woman. I'm not sure what the difference in that is. So let's talk about it, Alicia.
Yeah, well, we unfortunately know what the difference is. And up until this point, it's been a disqualifying factor. Nobody cared about that. And the lady is overly qualified. She there's nothing they can really get her on. I know they're going to go through the fact that she was in a district, public defender. And I know they're going to go through all of her old cases and go over them with a fine-tooth comb. And I hope Marsha Blackburn doesn't get a hold of an old parking ticket so she can say the lady has a rap sheet. But they're going to try to come at this lady from all sides. And she's a Harvard grad, which they love. So I think she's going to be fine. And they nominated her a year ago. So what's going to be the new criteria that happened in 1 year other than the color of her skin? So, We'll see. Because
we kind of know that Joe Biden, in his campaign promise, said that he would nominate a Black Supreme Court justice. But I think that it's come up again now that we need a Supreme Court justice, right? Do you think he should have said she's going to be Black, it's going to be a woman and she's going to be Black at all?
Yeah, I don't think he should have played his hand like that. I think he should have just done it. He didn't need to say it. He should have just done it, because saying it just opens it up for people like Ted Cruz to say all kinds of dumb stuff. And it opens the door for people to have another issue other than her qualifications. So I personally wish he hadn't said anything. Just do it. You knew you were going to vote for her. You knew you were going to put her up. Just put her up. Now we have to sit up here and swing on social media with all these crazy trolls because you wanted to show your hand early.
Dr. Oleka, listen, the Supreme Court for centuries, I guess, has been full of white men. Why is this a big deal?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's different from what Joe Biden said and what Donald Trump said and what Ronald Reagan said when they both appointed women. I agree with Alicia. I don't think that you should have said it. I think you just do it. You mentioned it during the campaign. People knew that you were going to do it, fulfill your promise that way, as opposed to exactly what Alicia said, having to deal with trolls who either just don't want black women on the court or want to use this as a way to drive a wedge. I actually appreciate what Senator McConnell said, where he said, look, we need a rigorous process. Look at her record. He didn't vote for her confirmation last year when she was up for the D.C. Circuit Court. So if things have changed, then perhaps he'll vote for her then. But I think the focus ought to be on the record. If you feel like her record is good enough, then vote for her. If you feel like it's not, then don't. She did get 3 Republican votes last year. Senator Collins from Maine, Senator Murkowski from Alaska, and Senator Graham from South Carolina. We'll see if she gets all of those, but really all she needs are all 50 Democrats, and she's on the Supreme Court.
So if she doesn't get all 50 Democrats, but a couple of Republicans are tossed in there, she's still good to go, right?
That's right. She only needs 50 plus the vice president or 51 senators, and she's good to go. I think, again, barring anything that has changed between this year and last year, I suspect she will join the court. And then I'm going to have to explain to my daughter why we got Democrats who are black women in vice president and on the court, and why I want her to be a Republican. So we got to think about me and my concerns long term.
Well, listen, this is still good for your daughter, Dr. Oleka, because we can tell her that it is possible and that she should be the first Black Republican on the Supreme Court, or the first Black Republican to be president of the United States in terms of being a woman. So we still got we got some good, examples here. Don't toss us out.
True.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. So let's talk about Juwan Howard and Wisconsin Badgers head coach Greg Gard got into an altercation over the necessity of a timeout that involved players from their teams. Take a look at this. Howard is suspended for the remainder of the regular season, 5 games, and fined $40,000 for hitting Wisconsin assistant coach. And Wisconsin coach Greg Gard was fined $10,000, but was not suspended. So who's at fault here for this fight? I still don't know, what happened, what went on.
Well, in terms of the video, if you look at what has been shown, it seems as though the altercation started in the line after the game. Howard, as the coach, seemed to initiate it. Perhaps that's why he's got the suspension, whereas the other coach just has the fine. It's a difficult thing, obviously, to look at without having watched the full game, understanding the context. Maybe something was said. But I think over time, all that's going to come out. Perhaps some of those games get rescinded. It's going to be hard to say. But Coach Howard, being part of the Fab Five, he's got to know these college organizations, they don't play with some of this stuff. So hopefully it'll get resolved. He'll be able to learn from it and be back on the court coaching.
Alicia.
Yeah, what I saw from the video was something a little different. I saw Juwan trying to walk past and the guy stopping him and impeding his progress. And that, you can't just stop a grown person from walking when they want to walk and where they want to walk. And Juwan was trying to get by. The guy stopped him, put his hand on him first, and then you saw Juwan fussing. And then that's when the whole thing took a bigger turn and a melee ensued and people started running up and Juwan swang and hit one man. I don't even know who this man was, but he caught one. And I think that Juwan was frustrated at the whole game. Right. So that didn't help. And if you know somebody's frustrated, they just took a loss, and then you stop them from walking by, then I don't think that, you got to know these are alpha males who are accustomed to winning. They have egos too. And I don't see why you would stop somebody that doesn't want to talk to you. You can't force people to talk to you.
Yeah. Let's talk about forcing female coaches what to wear. Former DeSoto girls basketball player and Texas A&M coach Sydney Carter sparked controversy over her courtside attire during a game. Some said her pants were unprofessional. In her defense, Carter said, "You don't have to apologize for being yourself. I can't help at the end of the day when I walk out and I have curves. I got to take them with me everywhere I go." You think that outfit was appropriate? Look, I'm looking for the leather pants and the top myself. So y'all already know how I feel, where I stand on it. And I'm wearing it to church. So then, and the NAACP meetings. So there, Alicia, let's go. How would you?
Yeah, I don't know too many. I don't know too many men who are upset about her wardrobe choices. She's an attractive lady, and she can wear whatever she wants to wear. She's not nude on the court, and she's doing her job and doing it well. So, I mean, she's a fashionista. What can I say? She doesn't look like coaches that they're accustomed to seeing, and she's a trendsetter and a trailblazer, and you have to deal with it. She has the job, and that's that. You can't police what people are wearing. And she's not wearing anything that's inappropriate.
All right, Dominique.
Unless the job has a strict dress code or a uniform, I think she can wear what she wants to wear. The question to me is, am I doing the job, not what do I have on, unless my job is fashion model. I just think that women's bodies are policed in ways that men's aren't. I've seen some coaches, I haven't seen them in outfits quite like that, but I've seen men wearing fashion choices I didn't agree with. No one ever comments on it. It's, do they have a winning record?
Dr. Oleka, I presume you want to join this conversation.
You can also presume I defer to my female colleagues on this topic.
He's like, I've never seen her. I don't know what she wears. I don't know what clothes are.
I don't know what.
Well, look. I mean, I think Dominique is right. I mean, I think it's important that we point out that you have men who wear different clothes all the time. Nobody comments on them. So because she's a female and she does, I think that's what's caused this controversy. Dominique pointed out her job is to coach and to coach the girls to win games. If she does that, that's the only thing we should be talking about.
I agree. That's the only thing we should be talking about. Look, you can't help it if you fine. You know what I'm saying? It's just how it goes. I can't help it if I'm fine. We're going to take a quick break. Come right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Hello, and welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Okay, Black Lives Matter has been suspended from Amazon's charity platform, Amazon Smile, due to failure to disclose how over $50 million in donations was spent in 2020. This is not the first time the organization has faced scrutiny over dispersed funding. In May of 2021, co-founder and executive director Patrisse Cullors resigned amid scrutiny scrutiny of her $1 million property purchases. So how do we feel about all of this? Dominique, I know you are a part of local Black Lives Matter and you support BLM to the hilt and have often defended this. So what do we say about this? How do you?
Black Lives Matter, I mean, officially I'm not a member. I do support their protests. I support the movement. But this is a whole collection of terrible media attacks on Black Lives Matter. Even just the way Amazon spun that story. First of all, the reason that they were suspended is because they're not in compliance with their paperwork in reporting with two or three states. It's not about how did they spend $50 million. No, it was about compliance paperwork. They say they're working with an expert to get back in compliance. Second of all, Amazon is notoriously in partnerships with all of these law enforcement agencies. So how are they the non-biased people to make any kind of statement about Black Lives Matter? They sell their surveillance technology to police departments across the country, their ring phones and their unofficial surveillance network of citizens, which is the biggest unofficial surveillance network of citizens ever in United States history, is in collaboration with law enforcement. Do we expect them to be supportive of Black Lives Matter? Of course not. This is very, very disingenuous. The reporting on Patrisse Cullors, under scrutiny over her $1 million home purchases. That's a lot of BS. It was clearly shown that Patrisse Cullors used money that she has from her book deal, her development deal that she has here in Hollywood, to purchase 2 homes, one for her mom and one for herself. Anyone who's lived in LA knows that if you're buying a home for $500,000, that ain't no mansion. And she bought one in Inglewood and one in Topanga Canyon for like under $500,000. Topanga's a nice area. That's like a shack.
Yeah,
So,
how did she find a house in Topanga for under $500,000?
Right. So
I have no
idea.
idea.
It look like she's high rolling and she's doing shady deals like the Trump syndicate, and that's just not the case. She earned money doing her work as an artist and used it to buy herself and her mom and brother a home. There's nothing wrong with that. If she was an athlete, she'd be on the cover of People magazine and we'd be celebrating for her, for taking care of her mom. Instead, we're attacking her with innuendo when she never received that money from BLM. She's received a total of $100,000 from BLM for more than a decade's worth of work. So that's just completely ridiculous. And I hate the way we get caught up in the media spin and we don't unpack the details and understand who has what agenda, why they're saying what they're saying, and how they're spinning things to make them seem different than what they are.
Yeah, the problem is Amazon has taken BLM off of their fundraising site. And even if they were to comply and go back onto that site, there's now this mysterious thing around them that says maybe they aren't so up and up. And that's the problem, I would think.
But that's a right-wing smear campaign, Tammy. They're doing it because Black Lives Matter is so successful in getting rights and opportunities for Black people. The right was late in attacking Black Lives Matter, frankly. They made a lot of traction, and now they're coming down with full force. That's not mysterious. It's business as usual.
Well, I don't disagree there, but I do believe that people who were once giving money or people who plan on giving money are going to take a second look at it now and say, I don't know, maybe something funny is going on. Dr. Oleka, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's very clear how I feel about this. I mean, let's not conflate two things. Dominique defended Patrisse Cullors and explained all of those finances on her particular side. That's an individual. What Amazon is talking about is an organization that, by their very definition and excitement when they first started, claimed as an organization that they would be decentralized. That was one of their hallmarks. We are a decentralized organization. There is no one single leader. Fine. Well, as a result, you've got at least 3 states that don't know how to fill out paperwork. And so now the entire organization that has $50 million or so unaccounted for in monies no longer gets to raise money from individuals who do not know where that money is going. This is not a right-wing talking point. If it was easy to figure out where the money was, then you could just look at what they actually produced with the IRS. It's a very simple question. Anybody who has ever run an organization, a nonprofit, knows they have to fill out documents based on their donations. You have people within the Black Lives Matter organization, writ large, who just didn't do it. So as a result, Amazon says, we're not going to fool with you. This is not some conspiracy. Produce the paperwork, figure out where the $50 million went. We were just talking about in a couple shows ago how California, which is not a conservative right-wing state, is now questioning whether or not they need to bring in legal charges about where this money has gone. These are reasonable questions, and Amazon as a company has the right to kick them off Amazon Smile.
They do have a right, but the money's not accounted for. Black Lives Matter did a detailed report on it, and Amazon is not unbiased. They are partners with law enforcement across the nation to great profit.
Alicia, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, Amazon Smile clearly ain't concerned with whether or not Black folks smile, because that does not sound like it was necessary to do. If it's 3 states and they have everything accounted for, then what's the problem? Like, I just don't get it. Like, it feels personal, then how are they guilty before they're proven guilty? Aren't they innocent until proven guilty? Like, you just snatch them off a platform, which does, like you said, Tammy, make them look bad, make them look guilty. People are going to stop donating because we only read headlines. And I think it was purposeful on Amazon's part, and they should be ashamed of themselves if what they're doing is not correct. I want to see what the fallout is from this and what the outcome is. And if they are wrong, they need to send out a retraction.
Black Lives Matter is not the only Black organization that exists. If Amazon was so against the Black community, so in league with racist police officers, then they'd kick every Black organization off that might have
Well,
struggled
now,
with paperwork.
Dr. Oleka, I got to disagree with you on that. Black Lives Matter is one of the organizations that has brought a lot of change and a lot of eyes and popularity to this movement. And let's face it, Black Lives Matter has made a huge difference in the way we look at how Black people are treated in America. And not only that, they've probably amassed more money in a smaller amount of time than any other Black organization. And so that could be why they're being looked upon in this manner.
I would respectfully disagree, because we can't have it both ways. If Black Lives Matter is a centralized organization that has amassed all this change, then you have to expect Amazon to say, well, you don't have the paperwork in a few states, so you're all gone. In Kentucky, Black Lives Matter has done some really good work. I personally have worked with some of the folks who have led some good positive change in the General Assembly. I don't know what Black Lives Matter does in any other state, but if they don't have the paperwork, if they've raised $50 million and they haven't produced where that money is going, then this isn't some great crime against the Black community and Black activists. It is specific to an organization that at least in 3 different states cannot produce paperwork. To say that it is an attack on Black activism because of a specific organization, I think is not the full story.
They have tracked where the $50 million is going. As Patrice Cullors pointed out, most of this money was given to them by corporations. It's not money they went out and stumped for, so they had to make adjustments. Now they do have a centralized foundation. They're a young organization, and so they're still, making adjustments to their governance. Tammi, I would point out that as a result of the work of Black Lives Matter, other organizations like the NAACP, like the LA Urban, like the National Urban League, have actually amassed way more money than Black Lives Matter did, because many of the companies that wanted to donate to anti-racism didn't want to go with Black Lives Matter. So other organizations benefited from the work of Black Lives Matter, which is not a bad thing. But it's worth noting that those other organizations are not under scrutiny in the same way.
But it also kind of shows that BLM has had a unique power. And whenever we talk about America, we talk about who's got the power. And that power, if it belongs to Black people, you will get the shakedown for sure. Okay. I guess we could take a break and come right back, because we're going to talk about Colin Kaepernick. He's launching a program called the Autopsy Initiative that will provide a free second autopsy for the families of people who died in police-related circumstances. This is going to be a game changer for sure. We're going to talk about it when we return on The Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. Y'all stick around. Stay right here. Don't you dare touch it. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. I'm Tammi Mack. My guests today are Dr. O.J. Oleka, Dominique DePrima, and Alicia Cooper. So Colin Kaepernick is launching a program called the Autopsy Initiative that will provide a free second autopsy for the families of people who died in police-related circumstances. Now, this initiative defines police-related deaths as those that occur when an individual is harmed by police officers while using deadly force, which results in the individual's death. So what are your thoughts on Kaepernick's new initiative? This is quite something. This is something that could really be a game changer when it comes to policing, and particularly in Black neighborhoods, Dr. Oleka.
Well, we'll see what this is able to do. When you start getting into autopsy work, you need to get certain pieces of information, obviously from the coroner's office, you need medical records, you need stuff from law enforcement. I don't know that all of those agencies will be willing to cooperate with one Colin Kaepernick in his agency or his organization at the very least. I think there is some potential. People obviously have different opinions on whether or not police are responsible or not responsible for the deaths of everybody that are killed with police officers involved. With an autopsy, you can't really fake it one way or the other. So I'm curious to see how this goes. I wonder how many of these agencies will be cooperative and what the information can produce.
That's a good point. But I think that the agencies not being cooperative speaks volumes as well. Don't you think, Dominique?
It would speak volumes. And to your point, Tammi, a lot of families whose loved ones have been killed by police do end up springing for their own second autopsy. We've seen this in many, many cases. And often those autopsies conflict with the official report or raise questions that weren't raised before. Now, I don't know, how they're able to get those done, because as Dr. Oleka points out, you may need cooperation from other agencies and authorities. But so far, we have seen this work for several families whose loved ones have been killed. And then you've got to figure there are many others who just simply can't afford to do that, to pay for their own autopsy. So I would imagine in those kinds of cases, if they're able to get it done as we've seen families do in the past, that this would be very important and may change the outcome of some cases. Of course, yes, there's lots of other moving parts, like district attorneys and whether or not they decide to bring charges against those officers and the like. But this is an important tool. And even though it seems oddly specific, I think it is a scenario that will end up helping some families that don't have the means to do so.
Alicia?
Yeah, this is another reason why I'm a fan of Colin Kaepernick. I didn't even realize that this was a big problem. And to alleviate these families that are already in the most stress they'll ever be in from a horrible death of a loved one, I think that what he's doing is amazing. And I used to work on the Dr. Phil show, and one thing he always famously said was, those who have nothing to hide, hide nothing. So if you start hiding all this stuff, you automatically look guilty. And I hope that that plays better for a jury and what you were trying to do. And yeah, a second autopsy is just like a second opinion in the medical profession. You should always have one, especially because they work so incestuously together and have a hidden an agenda in keeping the truth from getting out.
Should this be, or is this retroactive? Is this for going forward, or do we go back and look? How should this happen? Like, is Colin Kaepernick gonna have his team look at these cases from decades ago?
I don't know if they can do that because they'd have to have the body. I mean, you can't do an autopsy without the body. I hope those folks are buried and consecrated.
Well, I guess I'm asking: are we exhuming bodies? Is that how far back are we going?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine they're going to be dealing with current cases. Sadly, there are enough people being killed today in America, particularly Black people, by law enforcement, that they don't really have to go back.
Yeah,
right. And if a case has been settled and the cop was found not guilty because of double jeopardy, there's not much they can do at that point anyway. So I agree with Dominique. It's probably going forward.
One thing to look on this too, Tammi Mack, is state law. What do states allow non law enforcement or non medical agencies to even have access to? And again, Colin Kaepernick, despite what you may think about him, is a controversial figure. So if you have a Kaepernick-led organization trying to do different autopsies with the narrative that it's trying to say that police are not good, you may start to see some state legislatures outlaw that very kind of behavior.
But I think he's funding the families to do it, Dr. Oleka. So it would actually be the family asking for the autopsy and Kaepernick paying for it.
That'd be very different.
Yeah. But my question is, how does this help with the outcome of what a case was? Does it in any way show police guilty, or that the police had? I don't.
Sure, if the cause of death is in dispute, which it often is. Remember, even in the George Floyd case, they tried to say that he didn't die from being choked to death, that he died from drugs or some other,
that's true.
medical condition that he had. A lot of times the cause of death can be in dispute.
Great example. Yeah.
The officer's story, if they said he was coming at me, but all the shots are in the back, for example, that kind of evidence that comes out in an autopsy can either support or undermine the official story.
And then do we reopen these cases? I mean, it's like Alicia was saying, I'm not sure about this double jeopardy law you were referring to, Alicia, but do we reopen cases based on that? Is that how it would work, Dr. Oleka?
Well, what could happen, I know that Dominique has mentioned this before on the show, what could happen is you have a civil procedure. So basically, if you've got a charge that's levied against a law enforcement agency, so you killed this loved one of mine, the autopsy shows that they died some other way, there are no criminal charges filed. Well, they do a second autopsy, it's paid for. It turns out that autopsy has something different. If that becomes very credible in a civil case, and then what you can argue is a wrongful death type of lawsuit, and then all of a sudden, if you win that, then the city or the municipality or the law enforcement agency has to pay those damages to the family. So while you don't get necessarily a new case in terms of criminal charges against the specific members of law enforcement, you could get financial restitution to the family who lost their loved one. That's an expensive charge, obviously, from the city, but that could be a separate way of justice as opposed to a criminal action from law enforcement.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could be elevated up to the federal level. As an option.
That would be interesting. Either way, I do believe this is a game changer when it comes to Black people and the way that they are policed in America. Viola Davis will play Michelle Obama in the Showtime miniseries, The First Lady, that will chronicle the lives of some of America's leading first ladies. We do have a clip. Let's take a look.
Back and think, what did I become living in that house?
It is my great honor to introduce to you the First Lady of the United States. Oh, still got it.
Never lost it.
I am totally obsessed with first ladies. I don't know why. I am totally obsessed with first ladies. I love their position in America. I love seeing how they, what they choose to do as a first lady and how they decide whether to stand by their husband or behind their husband, or how much they participate. I mean, Hillary Clinton was very, very different than Jacqueline Kennedy. Jacqueline Kennedy was very, very different from Lady Bird Johnson. I mean, this is going to be fascinating to me, and I'm always watching documentaries on first ladies for some reason. I think I have a dream of being a first lady. Could anybody else play Michelle Obama other than Viola Davis, Alicia?
Nobody else that I can think of. I think they went for the big guns and they got the best one, but I really wanted her to play Eleanor Roosevelt myself. But but I will tune in. I can't wait to see it. Like you said, I love first ladies too. I want Caitlyn Jenner to play Melania Trump. Please let me cast this.
Dr. Oleka, anybody who could have played Michelle Obama?
I mean, I guess if not you, Tammi Mack, then probably no one else aside from Viola Davis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that nod. Thank you. Dominique?
Oh, I was thinking Tiffany Haddish. She plays everybody else. I think I'm not surprised that you're obsessed with first ladies, because it's such an odd position. It's not really a job. It's the closest we have to like a queen or a duchess, right? It's just right. You're just a lady. Like, you really don't have a job, but you have to do all this work because your husband got the job. It's kind of a weird position.
Yeah, because you don't really get paid for doing anything. You just kind of like, let me figure out what I can do, like being a part of the links. We'll take a quick break. Come right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Foxsoul. It's been a wonderful, wonderful show. We were talking about the first ladies and what the first lady's job is. And it's not a paid position. It's more like, what I was trying to say is it's more like a soccer mom position, where you focus in and you hone in on building your family's life, building your family's legacy and your family's greatness, which is what the first ladies do for America, like being a part of the Links, Jack and Jill, Girl Scouts of America, Boy Scouts of America. That's kind of the position of the first lady. Am I rambling here, or does that make any sense, Alicia?
Yeah, no, it makes perfectly good sense, and I agree. It's a weird job because it's a non-paying position, and then you're under so much scrutiny. They're scrutinizing what you wear, they're scrutinizing your hair, they're scrutinizing everything. Yeah. And Michelle Obama had the hardest job. They scrutinized a lady having her arms out. I'm like, but her arms are in shape. They would be worse if our arms were out and not in shape. Like, let's find the good.
Of being in shape, Michelle Obama, that was kind of her platform as the first lady, was to get America in shape, and particularly kids, right? She went to the lunchrooms and tried to swap out those, nasty pizzas with some, some healthy cauliflower crust.
And got pushback.
Yeah, right. Am I on the right track here, Dominique, or not?
Absolutely, you're on the right track. The first lady is supposed to be the symbolic head of, woman, head of household for all of America. And at the same time, she's meant to have a charitable portfolio. And that's why you would compare it to something like the Lynx or Jack and Jill. And also why I compare it to royalty, because they always have some charitable thing they're doing. It seems like they don't really have a job, but they're always cutting a ribbon or, promoting a charity. And that is a job, but it's not a job.
Yeah. And I think the Links came to mind because I'm actually hosting a conference for the Links, and anybody can join in on that conference March 6th. So just go to the Links Greensboro chapter, Greensboro, North Carolina chapter, and register to be a part of that conference. We're talking about all kinds of stuff, but mainly how to make it in the industry. So there you go. Former magazine editor Tara Roberts has joined National Geographic as the first Black woman explorer. She will search the ocean floor for slave ship wreckage to document the story of the slave trade. Now, Roberts has said out of the 1,000 estimated shipwrecks, only 10 have been found and documented. She documents her findings on her podcast Into the Depths, sharing not only what she discovers, but also her connection to what she discovers. This is amazing. Now, I can't believe this is the first time a Black woman has been an explorer. National Geographic need to get with it, because Black women been exploring, cheating husbands for a long time now. We go to the depths of the ocean to find a phone number. But this is quite amazing that no one has ever searched for slave ships and the history behind that, isn't it, Dr. Oleka?
Yeah, I think it is actually a pretty awesome opportunity for her to recover some things that are really important for world history, but also American history. I love that she's going to do, I assume, a segment of the show where she shows her personal connection. I will say something I think that's also important. I think this is incredibly useful. I assume she will be great at this. I hope, though, that National Geographic expands her portfolio beyond this when this segment is done. Because she's the first Black woman. What I would hate is for people who watch the show to say, well, the only thing that Black folks can explore is our connection to slavery. I think that would be a bad thing if that's where people came away. I think this is an excellent thing to do for her. I hope they expand her portfolio so she gets to explore all kinds of things in her career.
Yeah, that's that's an excellent point. I do believe that this was specific to her and probably a passion of hers to do as well, though. But yeah, it would be all kinds of bad news for National Geographic to go, thank you, Black lady, for telling us about the slaves. We don't need you anymore. Dominique?
I actually had an opportunity to interview Miss Roberts. And what she did was she connected with an existing group of Black scuba divers who have been expertly searching for these slave ships for years. And then they ended up training her to be a scuba diver, even though she was along to cover this. And it's really interesting. This is something to check out. One thing I learned from Miss Roberts is that the way that they find out where to look for the slave ships is because these slave ship owners had slave insurance. Right? And so they file claims when the ships go down, not because they're worried about the human beings that died in the bottom of the ocean. That was their property. So we actually have property claims like you would see for an automobile accident that pinpoint specific spots where these slave ships are thought to be. And I believe this project was driven by Miss Roberts. This was a passion of hers. She found the Black scuba divers. She went on this journey. And she's got quite a portfolio of different kinds of exploration under her belt as an artist. So I'm pretty sure, and a journalist, that she'll do much more with National Geographic.
So are you telling me she was a journalist first, and in her route to doing a story, she found this slave ship so fascinating that she decided to learn how to scuba dive specifically to do this?
She found this group of Black scuba divers on the East Coast who have been around forever and became fascinated with their quest to find these slave ships. And then so fascinated, a lot of these are regular people. They might be an accountant by day and a scuba diver on the weekend, who are really committed to finding out our history and digging up the remains of these slave ships, and just became fascinated with the process. And yes, learned how to scuba dive.
Wow. Alicia, how do you like this?
I like it. Tara the Black Explorer. I'm loving every second of it. I'm just glad that we've been able to see Black people in other lights, except for the usual few career choices they love to push us in the forefront of. And this is exciting. There's the Black divers and archaeologists and historians and finding ships that went under and nobody ever found what happened to them. This is exciting. And I'm happy to even know that this lady exists and she's doing this, and I will watch. I'm excited. Yeah. This is great.
Certainly warms my heart. Alicia, listen, we always talk to you on the show, but we rarely hear about what you're doing. So talk about some of your upcoming projects, please.
Oh, yes. Well, right now I'm turning my Fat Stripper short into a feature, and I'm trying to get Lizzo as the lead. So cross your fingers on that. And I'm really close to directing my first episode of television. So I have a meeting for that, and just hoping my meeting goes really, really highly recommended by a top director in the industry, Ken Whittingham. And so every weekend I'm at the Comedy Store on Sunset. I'm there tonight in the main room at 8:00.
That would be Los Angeles, everybody, just in case.
Los Angeles, get it. I don't care how you get here.
You know my show
Just
is it's global, right? You know,
global, right. I don't care how they get here. Just get here if they can.
Dominique DePrima, you are on the radio in Los Angeles, California, but we can get you all across the world as well during the morning show at KBLA.
Yes, KBLA AM. It is the first Black-owned strictly talk radio station west of the Mississippi, and I'm on morning drives, but you can find my podcast on our app, which is KBLA 1580 on anywhere you get your apps. It's free, and we are streaming on the website 1580 KBLA1580.com. So we have listeners all over the country. Call me, yell at me, let's fight, let's talk, let's have a laugh.
Dr. Oleka, what's going on with the Kentucky Coalition?
Well, it is an exciting time in anti-racism in Kentucky. Last year in 2021, we passed some bills that created a commission to make sure that studying institutional racism could be the forefront and focus in Kentucky. But also, we passed a bill to make it more difficult to charge kids as adults for some crimes, which is pretty important for the Black community. And as a result, I've been able to do some speaking on diversity to some smaller companies in the Midwest, particularly those that are conservative, to get people to think about it differently. So it's been very exciting.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oleka. That's Business of Being Black. Stick around for TGIF.